He was exhausted by the predictable world of wealth, luxury cars, maids, chauffeurs, so he slipped into a disguise and lived as a simple dispatch rider. One delivery changed everything. The recipient? A Nigerian aspiring fashion designer fighting for her breakthrough. Without revealing his identity, he quietly pulled strings to open doors she could never reach alone. And just when her dreams finally started taking shape, one mistake threatened to destroy it all. What happened next could rewrite both their lives forever. For more amazing stories of love, determination, and emotions, like, share, and subscribe. This is Bella's story time. The city of Seoul shimmered under the glow of 1,000 neon lights, its pulse alive with energy, but to Ji-hoon, it all felt hollow. From his penthouse window, the world below looked distant, like a painting he could admire but never touch. The glass reflected his flawless suit, silver watch, perfect hair, yet behind those polished details was a man suffocating under the weight of privilege. Chairman Han's son. That was what they all called him. Not Ji-hoon, not a man with dreams or flaws, just a title, a symbol of money and power. He could buy anything, yet nothing felt real. Every handshake was strategic, every smile calculated. His father, the great Han Dae-hyun, had built an empire from steel and technology. But Ji-hoon often wondered if his father had ever built happiness. The thought haunted him, especially during the endless charity banquets and board meetings where everyone spoke in rehearsed tones. Even love, he discovered, came with conditions. The women he dated were perfect on paper models, heiresses, daughters of other CEOs, but all their affection dissolved the moment he stepped out of his luxury car and into their carefully curated worlds. They loved the name Han Ji-hoon, not the person behind it. He had grown tired of pretending, of smiling at people who never truly saw him. One night, sitting alone in the back of his limousine, he made a quiet decision that would change everything. "Stop the car," he told his driver, his voice firm yet oddly calm. The driver looked back, puzzled. "Sir?" "I said stop," Ji-hoon repeated. He stepped out into the cool night air, the scent of street food and rain mixing around him. He slipped off his Rolex and tucked it into his pocket. The city felt raw, real for the first time. That night, he found himself in a small neighborhood far from the polished streets of Gangnam. The kind of place where shopkeepers greeted customers by name and laughter spilled from tiny restaurants with steamed-up windows. It was here that Ji-hoon decided to start over, to live as an ordinary man. The next morning, while his father thought he was traveling for business, Ji-hoon began his double life. He found a run-down apartment with flickering lights and thin walls. The smell of instant noodles lingered in the air, and the mattress creaked when he sat on it, yet for some reason, it felt more honest than the king-sized bed back home. He got a part-time job at a food delivery service. It wasn't glamorous, zipping through Seoul's crowded streets on a motorbike, dodging taxis and rain, but it gave him something he hadn't felt in years: freedom. He wore a simple black helmet and old jeans, blending into the crowd like any other young worker trying to make ends meet. The first few days were humbling. Customers barked at him for being late, and he quickly learned that not everyone tipped. Sometimes he returned home with aching arms and empty pockets. But for the first time, the struggles were his own. There was a strange pride in earning something by effort, no company name, no father's influence, just sweat and time. Then, one rainy evening, something unexpected happened. He had been delivering to a student dorm near Hongdae. The building was old but colorful, with potted plants on the balcony and faint Afrobeats music echoing from one of the rooms. As he rang the doorbell, a warm voice called out, "Coming!" Moments later, the door opened and Ji-hoon froze. She stood there, holding a half-finished sketchbook, her dark brown skin glowing against the dim light of the hallway. Her hair was wrapped in a stylish scarf, and her smile, though simple, felt like sunlight cutting through the rain. "Oh, you must be the delivery guy. Thank you," she said, her accent lilting and melodic. Ji-hoon nodded, momentarily lost for words. Yes, your order," he managed to say, handing her the food. As she reached for her wallet, she noticed his drenched jacket and the fatigue in his eyes. "Hey, wait a minute," she said gently. "You look exhausted. Have you eaten?" He blinked, unsure how to respond. No one had ever asked him that before. I'm fine," he replied awkwardly. She smiled, shaking her head. "You don't look fine. Hold on." She disappeared inside, then returned with a small bowl of spicy rice cakes. "Here, it's not much, but it's warm. Eat before you go back out there." Ji-hoon hesitated. Delivery riders were supposed to stay professional, but something in her tone, the sincerity, the lack of pretense made it impossible to refuse. He accepted the food quietly. "Thank you," he said, his voice softer now. "Name's Amaka," she said cheerfully. "From Nigeria. I'm studying fashion design at Yonsei." "Ji-hoon," he replied automatically, and quickly regretted it. It was too close to his real identity, but she didn't seem to notice. "Well, Ji-hoon, you better eat before it gets cold," she said, turning back inside with a smile. As he ate, the rain continued to fall. But for the first time in years, Ji-hoon felt something stir inside him, warmth. It wasn't the food. It was the way she looked at him, not as someone to impress, not as the son of a billionaire, but as a person. When he returned to his apartment that night, he couldn't stop thinking about her. Her laughter, her eyes, her kindness. It felt different, real. And though he didn't know it yet, that brief encounter would unravel everything he thought he knew about life, love, and identity. Because beneath the mask of an ordinary man, Ji-hoon was about to experience something no money could ever buy, being truly seen. The next few days passed in a blur of rain and deliveries. Seoul's skies had turned a constant gray, washing the city in a melancholy tone. Ji-hoon didn't mind the rain, gave him an excuse to keep his helmet on, his identity hidden beneath the droplets. But no matter how many addresses he rode to, one name echoed in his mind: Amaka. He told himself it was nothing, just gratitude, perhaps a kind gesture from a stranger. But when he found himself slowing down each time he passed her street, he knew he was lying to himself. Something about her had unsettled the quiet walls he'd built around his heart. One afternoon, while resting in a small convenience store, Ji-hoon overheard two other riders complaining. "Those foreign students near Hongdae? They don't tip," one said. The other laughed. "Yeah, especially that African girl with the braids. Always smiling but never tips." Ji-hoon clenched his jaw, resisting the urge to speak. He wanted to defend her, though he barely knew her, but he stayed silent. There was something wrong about how easily people judged others. He had spent his whole life being misjudged too, just in a different direction. That evening, fate seemed to conspire once again. A delivery request popped up on his phone, same address as before. His chest tightened as he accepted. When Amaka opened the door, she was wearing a paint-stained apron and had a tape measure around her neck. The room behind her looked like creative chaos fabrics scattered across the floor, sketches taped to the wall, and a mannequin draped in half-sewn fabric. "Ah, it's you again," she said with a grin. "Ji-hoon, the delivery guy." He smiled shyly. "Guess the rain wants us to meet again." She laughed. "Maybe it does. Come in, I don't want the food to get wet." He hesitated at the doorway. We're not supposed to." "Oh, come on. You look like you've been riding all day," she said, tugging him gently inside. "You can sit for 5 minutes, can't you?" The air inside smelled faintly of vanilla and fabric dye. Music played softly in the background. Afrobeat blended with K-pop instrumentals. Ji-hoon found himself strangely at ease. You sew all this? He asked, gesturing to the sketches. Yeah, I'm working on my semester project, she said, holding up a half-finished jacket. It's called Cultural Fusion, Korean structure with African soul. He studied the piece, noticing how the hanbok-inspired collar met with vibrant Ankara prints. It's beautiful, he said sincerely. Amaka smiled, brushing a braid from her face. You sound surprised. No, I mean, it's just different, in a good way. She chuckled. Different scares people sometimes, especially here. But I think beauty lives in the in-between where worlds meet. Her words struck something deep in him. Where worlds meet. Wasn't that what he was trying to do? To live between the world of privilege and the world of reality and maybe find himself somewhere in between? Can I ask you something? Amaka said suddenly. Why do you look sad sometimes? Ji-hoon blinked, caught off guard. Sad? Yeah. You have this look like you're carrying something heavy but pretending it's light. He smiled faintly. Maybe I just think too much. Well, stop thinking so much, she teased. The world's already serious enough. They talked for hours about music, life, culture. Amaka told him about Lagos, her family, and how she worked part-time at a small fashion studio. Sometimes I feel like I'm invisible here, she said quietly. People stare at me, but they don't really see me. I know the feeling, Ji-hoon said, almost whispering. Really? She asked, amused. What would a delivery guy know about being invisible? He hesitated, eyes softening. More than you think. She looked at him for a long moment, then smiled again. Well, to me, you're not invisible. Those words stayed with him long after he left. That night, back in his apartment, Ji-hoon found himself sketching something he hadn't done since childhood. He drew the outline of a woman standing under an umbrella, smiling against the rain. It was Amaka, radiant, real, and unafraid. The next morning, his father's assistant called. Sir, the chairman is requesting your presence tomorrow. The board meeting is important. He's announcing the Hanjin Foundation's new fashion initiative. Fashion. The irony made him laugh quietly. His double life was about to collide with the world he was trying to escape, and he didn't even realize how close it already was. As the rain continued to pour outside, Ji-hoon leaned against his window, heart restless. He didn't understand what was happening between him and Amaka. But one thing was clear. For the first time in years, he wanted to be someone better, someone worthy of how she saw him. And yet, he knew the truth always had a way of catching up. The following morning, the alarm on Ji-hoon's phone buzzed before dawn. For the first time in weeks, he had to shed his second skin, no delivery uniform, no worn helmet, no anonymity. As he stood before the mirror, buttoning a navy suit worth more than his motorbike, the man staring back at him felt like a stranger. The tie tightened around his neck like a noose, a reminder that the real world, his world, was built on appearances and lies. By the time he arrived at Hanjin Tower, the city's financial district was already alive. Cameras flashed as he walked past the marble lobby, the familiar echo of polished shoes against stone filling his ears. Employees bowed respectfully, whispering young Master Han as he passed. He nodded politely, pretending not to hear the weight of the title. In the boardroom, his father sat at the head of the table, sharp, commanding, and unreadable. "You're late," Chairman Han said without looking up. "I came as soon as I could," Ji-hoon replied calmly, taking a seat. Around the table sat executives and designers, the company's best minds gathered for what was labeled as a strategic innovation meeting. His father cleared his throat, tapping a pen lightly against the glass surface. "Hanjin Group," he began, "is moving beyond electronics and construction. We're entering the luxury fashion industry, a bold expansion that will redefine Korean design on the global stage." A presentation flashed on the screen. Glossy images of models, futuristic fashion concepts, and the words, Hanjin Global Fashion Initiative. Jihoon listened quietly. He wasn't surprised. His father saw the world as a chessboard, every move precise, every opportunity seized. "What's our brand direction?" one executive asked. The chairman leaned back. "We'll focus on cultural fusion, blending Korean tradition with international creativity. Our first project will involve collaborations with young designers from around the world." Cultural fusion. Jihoon's heart skipped. Those exact words had left Amaka's lips just days ago. He swallowed, trying to stay composed. Another executive added, "We've already shortlisted several exchange designers from Seoul's top fashion programs. The talent pool is diverse." Diverse. The word rang hollow in Jihoon's mind. He knew what diverse meant in corporate language, a checkbox for inclusion, not a real seat at the table. The meeting went on for hours. When it ended, Chairman Han turned to his son. "You'll oversee the PR and community outreach aspect. I want you visible at every event. You'll be the face of the initiative." Jihoon nodded, though his stomach churned. Understood. As he stepped out into the hallway, the suffocating weight of expectations pressed down again. He pulled out his phone and opened his delivery app just to see if he still existed outside this world. He did. A new order blinked on the screen. Without thinking, he accepted it. That evening, Jihoon returned to the streets, the hum of his motorbike beneath him, a comforting reminder that freedom still existed. He delivered meals across Gangnam, through the rain and the noise, until he found himself again near Hongdae. His heart stirred when he saw Amaka's building light up in the distance. When she opened the door, she looked different, tired, frustrated. Her usual glow dimmed. Her workspace was cluttered, sketches torn and crumpled on the floor. "Rough day?" he asked softly. She sighed. "You could say that." He set the food down, glancing around. "What happened?" "My internship," she said bitterly. "They told me my designs were too bold and not Korean enough. I tried to explain the idea of fusion, but they just smiled like I was naive." Jihoon frowned. "That's not fair." She shrugged. "Fair isn't common here. Some people still think African designs are just colors and noise." He could see the hurt behind her words, not just professional disappointment, but personal rejection. "Don't give up," he said. "Your vision matters. Maybe they just don't understand it yet." She smiled faintly, eyes softening. "You sound like someone who's seen a lot of misunderstanding." "Maybe I have," he said, almost to himself. They sat in silence for a moment, as rain pattered outside. Amaka's phone buzzed an email notification. She opened it hesitantly, then froze. "What is it?" Jihoon asked. Her expression shifted from disbelief to awe. "It's an invitation from Hanjin Group. They're inviting me to pitch my designs for their new global fashion initiative." Jihoon's pulse spiked. Hanjin Group? His world and hers were colliding faster than he could control. "That's incredible," he said carefully, hiding the swirl of panic behind his calm tone. Amaka laughed, half in shock. "I don't even know how they found me. Maybe one of the professors recommended me. But Jihoon, this could change my life." He smiled, though a storm brewed inside him. "You deserve it." That night, after she went back inside, Jihoon stood in the rain, helmet in hand. He should have felt happy for her, and he did, but he also knew what awaited her on the other side of that invitation. The corporate sharks, the manipulative PR deals, the people who smiled while keeping their knives hidden. He couldn't let her walk into that world alone, but how could he help her without revealing who he truly was? When he returned to his apartment, he stared at his reflection again. Half delivery rider, half air. 2 faces, 2 lives. And now, both were about to crash into each other. For the first time, Jihoon truly feared the truth. Because if Amaka ever found out who he really was, not Jihoon, the delivery boy, but Han Jihoon, heir to the empire behind her big break, she might never forgive him. And yet, the clock had already started ticking. The morning light crept through the curtains of Amaka's tiny dorm room, casting soft gold across rolls of fabric and scattered pencils. For the first time in weeks, she woke up smiling. The email from Hanjin Group still glowed on her phone screen, an official invitation to present her designs to one of Korea's largest corporations. It felt unreal. All the late nights, the tears, the doubts they had finally led somewhere. But under that excitement lingered a whisper of fear. What if they only invited me for diversity? What if I'm just their token foreign face? She brushed the thought aside and focused on what she could control, her art. Across the city, Ji-hoon sat in his office at Hanjin Tower in his other life. His father's assistant had sent him the updated list of shortlisted designers. And there it was, Amaka, Nuosu, Yonsei University, Nigeria. The moment he saw her name, something twisted in his chest, pride, fear, and guilt all at once. He wanted to help her, to make sure she succeeded, but if he interfered directly, it would expose everything. Still, he couldn't do nothing. So quietly, behind his father's back, Ji-hoon called in a favor from an old friend in the PR department. "Make sure her slot is early," he said, "and have the panel review her full portfolio. Don't let anyone dismiss her because of bias." "Of course, Mr. Han," came the reply. "Should I mention your name?" "No," Ji-hoon said quickly. "She doesn't know me. Not like that." That night, Ji-hoon rode through the familiar streets again, the weight of two worlds pressing on his shoulders. When he arrived at Amaka's dorm, she greeted him with the same bright smile that always seemed to cut through his darkness. "Ji-hoon, you won't believe it, I got the invitation," she said, practically bouncing with excitement. He chuckled softly. "That's amazing. I told you they'd notice your talent." Amaka grinned, pulling him inside. "I need your help. I'm working on the final prototype, but I need someone with patience and two good hands." He laughed. "I can't sew." "You don't need to. Just hold the fabric steady." As she worked, her fingers moved swiftly, guiding the needle with practiced precision. She hummed under her breath, a mix of Nigerian folk melody and a Korean pop tune. Ji-hoon found himself watching her more than the work, mesmerized by her focus, the fire in her eyes. "You really love this," he said quietly. She looked up, smiling. "It's my life. Back home, my mom sold clothes at the market. I used to sit beside her, sketching designs on old newspapers. When she died, I promised myself I'd make something she'd be proud of." Ji-hoon's heart softened. "She would be. You're chasing your dream in a foreign country. That's not easy." Amaka paused, meeting his gaze. "You talk like someone who's been through hard things too." He froze for a second. "Maybe I have," he said carefully. "Like what?" He forced a smile. "Family expectations. Feeling trapped in something I didn't choose." Amaka nodded, her expression understanding. "Yeah, that can be its own kind of prison." They worked in silence for a while. The rain outside tapped softly against the window, their unofficial soundtrack. When the design finally took shape, Amaka stepped back to admire it. A sleek fusion of modern Korean structure with African print lining the sleeves and hem. It was bold, elegant, alive. "What do you think?" she asked eagerly. Ji-hoon studied it, genuinely moved. "It's powerful. Like it tells a story even before someone wears it." She laughed softly. "You always know what to say." He smiled. "No, I just say what I see." As she folded the finished piece, her phone buzzed a message from her classmate. "Jin-ah, be careful with Hanjin Group. They're known for using people's ideas and giving little credit." Amaka frowned, her excitement dimming. "You think that's true?" she asked, showing Ji-hoon the text. He hesitated. He knew how ruthless corporate deals could be, especially in his father's world. But he also knew she needed to believe in herself. "I can't say what's true," he said finally. "But I know your work is strong enough to speak for itself." She smiled faintly. You really believe that? I do. Then, without realizing it, he added, if I had the power, I'd make sure they see you really see you. Her eyes narrowed slightly. If you had the power? That's a strange thing to say for a delivery guy. Ji-hoon froze, realizing his slip. I just meant like, if I could influence something, you know. He tried to laugh it off, but her expression told him she noticed. She said, a teasing tone masking her curiosity. You always say things like someone who's not what he seems. He forced a small smile. Maybe everyone wears a mask sometimes. The words lingered between them heavy, almost prophetic. When he left that night, Amaka stood by the window watching him go. Something about him didn't add up. The way he spoke, his posture, his quiet confidence, it didn't fit the life of a part-time writer. She shook her head, brushing off the thought. You're overthinking, she muttered to herself. He's just kind. But as Ji-hoon rode into the rain, the guilt gnawed deeper. He had built this fragile bond on half-truths. Every smile she gave him felt like a gift he didn't deserve. And yet, the thought of losing her scared him more than the truth itself. The next day, the Hanjin Group fashion showcase loomed closer, and so did the collision of their worlds. The marble floors of Hanjin Tower gleamed like mirrors as Amaka stepped into the lobby, her heart pounding in her chest. She had barely slept the night before. Her hands clutched the garment bag that carried weeks of effort and emotion, her cultural fusion collection. For a brief moment, she paused in front of the towering glass doors that led to the main hall. On them was engraved the company's slogan, Building the Future, Honoring Tradition, she whispered to herself. Then, see mine. Upstairs, Ji-hoon watched from the observation deck overlooking the presentation floor. Dressed in a tailored gray suit, he blended in with the executives, though his pulse raced faster than it ever had in any board meeting. He wasn't supposed to be here. His father thought he was reviewing contracts in Busan, but Ji-hoon had quietly arranged everything to ensure Amaka got a fair chance. The presentations began. Designer after designer showcased glossy, predictable collections, safe, commercial, and lifeless. Then Amaka's name was called. She stepped onto the stage, nerves trembling beneath her confident smile. The panelists, including Chairman Han, looked at her curiously. She bowed deeply before beginning. Good afternoon. My name is Amaka Nwosu from Nigeria. My design, Cultural Fusion, is a dialogue between Korean tradition and African vibrance. A story told through fabric, structure, and emotion. She unveiled the first piece, a hanbok-inspired jacket with Ankara accents. Gasps rippled through the room. The colors were daring but harmonious, bold yet refined. Her voice, steady, she continued. To me, fashion is not just about clothes. It's about connection where different worlds meet without losing their identity. Ji-hoon watched, spellbound. She stood there radiant, unshaken, fearless, speaking truth to a room full of power. But not everyone was impressed. One of the senior executives, Mr. Park, leaned back and smirked. Interesting, he said slowly. But don't you think Korean fashion should be represented by someone who understands it culturally? A subtle insult wrapped in politeness, sharp as glass. The room tensed. Amaka hesitated, then met his eyes. With respect, sir, understanding culture is not limited by nationality. It's about empathy, study, and respect. I've spent years learning about Korean design, the symbolism, the structure. My goal isn't to copy it, but to celebrate it alongside mine. A low murmur spread through the audience. Even Chairman Han raised an eyebrow. Mr. Park frowned. But is the world ready for something so unconventional? Ji-hoon couldn't hold back anymore. He pressed the mic button linked to the internal feed. If innovation frightens us, then we've already fallen behind, he said, disguising his voice slightly through the system. The room turned toward the unseen speaker. Amaka's eyes widened. She recognized the tone calm, deliberate, and familiar. Ji-hoon? The chairman leaned forward. Who said that? A moment of silence. Then, Mr. Park laughed nervously. Perhaps the system caught feedback. Amaka took the cue. He's right, she said boldly. The future belongs to those who dare to blend, not those who divide. Her closing words hung in the air. When she finished, there was a beat of silence, then applause. Genuine, growing applause. Even Chairman Han nodded slightly, the faintest hint of admiration crossing his face. Thank you, Miss Nuosu, he said. That was refreshing. When she left the stage, Amaka's knees nearly gave out. She'd done it. Against all odds, she'd stood her ground. Ji-hoon exhaled in relief. His father's assistants congratulated the chairman on a potential PR breakthrough, but Ji-hoon only saw one thing, Amaka's face glowing with pride. Later that evening, in the hallway, she waited for the elevator when a voice called her name. Miss Nuosu, congratulations, said a tall man in a sleek suit. I'm Min Soo, assistant to Vice Chairman Han. Amaka smiled politely. Thank you. The Vice Chairman would like to meet you soon, regarding partnership opportunities. We'll contact you with the details. Vice Chairman Han? She repeated, curious. I thought the chairman led the initiative. Min Soo smiled faintly. His son oversees public relations and project development. He has a keen eye for talent. Amaka blinked. His son? Her mind flashed to Ji-hoon, the delivery boy who spoke like a CEO, the one who slipped once saying, "If I had the power." Her heart skipped. Later that night, she confronted her thoughts. It couldn't be true, could it? Ji-hoon had been kind, humble, almost too grounded for someone from that world. But the pieces started to fit. The way he spoke about privilege, how he seemed to know people in high places, the confidence that didn't match his job. She needed to know. The next day, she walked to a nearby cafe, waiting for him. When Ji-hoon arrived, wearing his usual hoodie and delivery jacket, she smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Hey, he greeted softly. Hey, she replied, studying him. I went to Hanjin Group yesterday. He froze, masking it with a smile. Yeah? How was it? Good, she said. Though something strange happened. Someone defended me through the sound system. He sounded a lot like you. His heart skipped. Really? That's funny. Yeah, she continued, eyes narrowing. And I heard the vice chairman's name is Han Ji-hoon. The air between them thickened. He opened his mouth to respond, but she raised a hand. Tell me it's not you, she whispered, voice trembling. Tell me you're not him. Silence. Ji-hoon looked at her, the woman who had made him feel human again, and realized the mask was slipping whether he liked it or not. The evening breeze swept softly through the streets of Gangnam, carrying with it the hum of city life and the quiet ache of a heart betrayed. Amaka walked alone, her heels clicking against the pavement as neon lights blurred into streaks of color. Her chest felt hollow, her mind replaying his silence, that heavy, guilty silence that said more than words ever could. He was Han Ji-hoon, the heir to Hanjin Group, the man who'd walked into her life under false pretenses, offering friendship when she was most vulnerable. She reached her tiny apartment and closed the door behind her, her breath shaky. The collection sketches lay scattered on the table, a reminder of everything they had shared. Long nights of laughter, shared dreams, and quiet promises. Amaka sank to her knees. Why couldn't you just tell me? She whispered to the empty room. Days turned to weeks. The news spread quickly, Hanjin Group's upcoming global heritage line, inspired by cultural collaboration. Everyone in the design world buzzed about it, but Amaka refused to be part of it. When the company sent her an invitation to partner officially, she declined. She wouldn't build her dreams under a lie. Instead, She poured her energy into something new, Nuosu Atelier, a small, independent label born from honesty and heart. She sold online at first, and slowly, word spread. Her first major order came from a Seoul fashion magazine, impressed by her bold take on Afro-Korean modernism. It was the validation she needed, not from Ji-hoon, not from Han-jin, but from her own grit. Meanwhile, Ji-hoon sat in his father's office, a shadow of himself. Chairman Han slammed the newspaper onto the desk. "You let her go," he snapped. "That girl's designs could have been the face of our campaign." "It's not about the campaign," Ji-hoon said quietly. "Then what is it about?" Ji-hoon looked up, his gaze steady. "It's about respect. I lied to her. I used her passion to fix our company's image. And now, I'm paying for it." The chairman studied his son for a long moment, then sighed. "Do what you must. But remember, sincerity doesn't always win in business." "Maybe not in business," Ji-hoon replied, standing. "But it should win in love." 3 months later, the Han-jin Global Heritage launch filled the COEX Convention Center with flashing cameras and elegant guests. The media swarmed as the company prepared to unveil its multicultural fashion line, the same vision Amaka had once dreamed of. But Ji-hoon had rewritten the script. As the lights dimmed, a spotlight hit the stage. Ji-hoon walked forward, no longer hiding behind the corporate smile. He wore a simple black suit, no tie, no pretense. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, voice echoing across the hall. "Tonight was meant to celebrate cultural collaboration. But true collaboration begins with truth." The audience murmured. His father stiffened in the front row. "There's someone who should be standing here more than me," Ji-hoon continued. "A woman who taught me what it means to bridge worlds, to create from the heart, and to honor both heritage and honesty." He took a deep breath. "Her name is Amaka Nwosu." A ripple of surprise ran through the crowd. The media lenses swung toward the back, where Amaka stood frozen. She hadn't planned to attend, she'd come only to deliver samples for another designer. Ji-hoon gestured toward the screen behind him. The projector came alive with images, her designs, her sketches, her models. "This collection," he said, voice thick with emotion, "was born from her courage. I took part of her dream and hid behind it. I was wrong." He looked out into the audience, straight at her. "I'm not here as the vice chairman. I'm here as Ji-hoon, the man who fell in love with a woman who never stopped believing in what was right." The hall was silent. Even Chairman Han didn't move. Amaka's eyes stung. She wanted to be angry, to turn and leave. But something in his voice, the tremor, the sincerity held her there. After a long moment, she walked slowly toward the stage. Every camera turned. Every whisper died. When she reached him, she stood still, looking up at him. "You embarrassed yourself on live TV," she said softly. He smiled faintly. "If that's the price for honesty, I'll pay it." A pause. Then she exhaled, her lips trembling into the faintest smile. "You really are impossible, Han Ji-hoon." "And you," he said, eyes glinting, "are unforgettable, Amaka Nwosu." The crowd erupted in applause, not because it was part of the show, but because something real had just unfolded before them. Weeks later, Amaka's brand skyrocketed. Nwosu Atelier collaborated officially with Han-jin on her terms this time. She led the project, Ji-hoon stepping aside to support her vision. The company rebranded its campaign under a new slogan, "Bridging Hearts, Building Futures." On the rooftop of their new shared studio, they watched the Seoul skyline fade into night. "Funny," Ji-hoon said softly. "It started with a coffee spill." Amaka chuckled, leaning against him. "And a lie." He nodded. "But it ends with truth." She smiled, resting her head on his shoulder. "And love."